Welcome back to another edition of the Forts Athletics Life and Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Inferna. And today we have, this is so awesome that I have this guest here with us, 2019 Pan American Games champion, all-around Olympic weightlifting superstar, Alyssa Ritchey. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, this is so cool. You know, like we were talking ahead of time, like it's interesting, like you slide into people's DMs or you try and contact people that, like, I don't know, like I didn't, my expectation was, oh, you know, might have got like kind of lost in translation a little bit, but I'm so excited. Like, thank you so much for taking the time. This is so cool.
Yeah, no problem. I love podcasts because number one, I'm on a podcast and I love talking. So I'm good at it.
Perfect. So before we get started here, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in sports when you were a kid?
Sure. Yeah. So I started off in gymnastics when I was really young, and I just kind of loved athletics from the get-go. As soon as I understood like what I was watching on TV, I was watching gymnastics with my mom, and Dominique Moceanu came on, and I remember watching her flip all over the floor, and she was such a good athlete. And that's kind of when I realized I had a love for like gymnastics. And so I did gymnastics for about 2.5 years, and I went from about I started off at the smallest, or the can't think of my word, lowest level, I guess, and beginners. And then I went to like level 6. But unfortunately, my coach didn't think it was necessary to move me up because a lot of where I was at, we were winning a lot of trophies as a team. So they wanted to keep me on that team so we could continue winning trophies. So it was like, it sucked, unfortunately. And then I kind of got stuck. And that's when I was like, you know, it's just, I'm putting all this time and effort into it. And I decided myself, my parents did not decide for me that I was going to stop doing gymnastics, even though I had a very big love for the sport. Then after gymnastics, I went to go on to track and field in high school, or actually in junior high. And I was really excited because I hadn't done sports at school with kids. And I was really new to like doing athletics in school versus like on the outskirts of school. And it was different because I actually got to connect with my classmates, and that was really neat. So I started track and field around 6th grade. Yeah. No, is that middle school?
Like 7th, 8th grade, something like
7th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started 7th grade, did it in 8th grade, and then went throughout my whole entire high school years. And then I even did it into college for probably a season.
Okay.
I did volleyball for a few years as well in high school. I loved it. I was the back row player. They called it the libero position, which was full-time back row when they started doing that position. I think that position was introduced in like my junior high year. Then I dabbled in skateboarding because a high school boyfriend was a skateboarder. And when I met him, I kind of like joked around and jumped on his board, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then that's kind of how we met. And then he brought his skateboard to like our first date when I was, I think, 15. And that happened to be my first boyfriend too. And he's like, you want me to teach you how to ride it? And I'm like, sure, why not? So he taught me how to ride it. And from there on out, I was really good. I would spend, I don't know, I would throw my backpack down inside our house after school and run out to the barn, sweep out our whole entire pole barn because I lived on a farm as a young girl. And I would make sure there's no rocks so I don't hit my wheels, and I would like flip and fall. And so that's when I was like I said, 15, and I would just do it for hours and hours and hours. I mean, there was a point where my dad had to actually turn off the lights in the pole barn to get my butt inside.
Wow.
Because I was so like, I'm just obsessed when I have an obsessive personality. So when I get into something, I like to be a perfectionist at it, which isn't always a great thing. It's actually not a good thing. because I strive to be the best. And unless I am the best at it in that very moment, or until I am, I will not stop working at it, which can be good and can be bad. So there needs to be a balance. But yeah, so I did just skateboarding, volleyball, track and field, gymnastics, and that kind of led into my college days where I did not compete in anything after I quit track and field at the University of Toledo because I got a scholarship there. I decided to stop running because I wanted to spend more time with my family and I wanted to get more involved in my church. So I was like, either tons of time in school because I was going to school full time at the same time. And then being a full-time athlete, I was getting up at like 5 a.m. to do strength and conditioning work. And then I was going to class, and then I was having my sports, athletics, and I had no time for anything else. So I decided to stop track and field. That's when I moved up to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I decided to do a fitness show, which if you're good at searching online, you can find me. But I look terrible because I am so dark. It's really weird. I wasn't like your normal fitness person, though. I didn't take it really serious. Like, I had a piece of cake before I went out on stage, like a week prior. People were like, all the girls were like, oh my God, you made a piece of cake? What? And I was like, yeah. I was like, why? I was like, what's so wrong with that? They were like, you're going to get bloated and blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't really care that much. So I did that. And I was just basically trying to find another competitive edge, like to be competitive, a sport to, for me to find, like just to do and just to like bring some satisfaction into, like, I wanted to be competitive again. I was like hungry for it. I ran into CrossFit about my sophomore year in college. And I actually wasn't in college at the time when I moved up to Michigan. So that's the year I started CrossFitting. I started another year of college, which would have been technically my junior year of college.
Okay.
So started CrossFit, did really well in it, made it to regionals 4 times, was I think 12th my first year, I think like 4th my second year, 9th, and then like 19th. After I was going through a lot of hard times with CrossFit, the last of the year, or the last year I was doing CrossFit, and it just seemed my body was like falling apart. I wasn't able to keep things together. I was freaking tired all the time. I was exhausted. And my shoulder was hurt. And that wasn't because of CrossFit. That was actually because Alyssa overtrained and decided she wanted to do weightlifting competitions in the middle of doing CrossFit because she likes to do everything she can because she's crazy. So that's kind of how that went. So I quit CrossFit. And that's when my sponsor, Chad Wesley Smith, called me up from Juggernaut Training Systems. And he was like, hey, do you want to do weightlifting? And I was like, no, not really. I just want to work with Max Ada, which is my current coach for weightlifting. And I just want to get strong as heck. And he was like, okay, well, why don't you just get strong as heck, then go to your first weightlifting competition, crush it so you can get on stipend, which is they pay you monthly if you're top 10 in the country. It kind of like that. I'm not going to go into explaining those details, too detailed.
No, that's okay. No, that's fine.
Yeah. So then I started weightlifting back in, I want to say, let's see, it's 2020 right now. I think I started weightlifting 2006, end of 2016, September, 17, 18, 19. Yeah, this would be my 4th year this year. Yep. So in September would be my 4th year. So I started weightlifting, and honestly, I made my first international team after I competed at my first national or 3rd national level competition. Cause like I said, I had dabbled with it a little when I was in CrossFit. And from there, I freaking fell in love with it. And I was like, I didn't know I could, I didn't know I was going to like it. If I was going to like it, I told Chad, I was like, honestly, if I don't like it after the American Open finals, I'm just going to drop it and go back to CrossFit. But my initial plan was go to weightlifting, get strong for 1 year, and then pick up CrossFit back in 2018. And I never did that. I ended up just being a weightlifter.
So when you started in CrossFit and you qualified for regionals those 4 years in a row, was there somebody like at your box like ahead of time, like even before the first time you qualified, that was like, hey, Alyssa, like you might be really good at this. Like you should just like try the open? Or was it just like everybody in your box signed up for it and you just decided to do too?
It was the owner of the
Mhm.
gym. He was basically, I walked in and he saw the talent. Like I walked in and showed him a ring handstand push up and he was
Mhm.
just like mind blown.
Right.
And if we all know, gymnasts don't work with rings. So it's not like normal.
Mhm.
But so he was very shocked that I could do a ring handstand push up. And so he just basically convinced me when I started CrossFit, I came in there to get better at my fitness shows.
Mhm.
But instead, I went the route of CrossFit because he was like, well, why don't you, it's like kind of like Chad's story.
Yeah,
Why
right.
don't you try it? And if you
Right.
like it, continue
Right.
on. And so what I did is I tried it
Mhm.
and I was like, I love this. I think it's so much fun. And I was I think I was, let's see, September, October, November, December, January, February, 6 months
Mhm.
when I did my first CrossFit Open.
Mhm.
And I was second in the open in my like in the central east region,
Right.
and only 1 point behind the first place
Mhm.
girl, and people were like, who is this?
Right.
Like she came out of nowhere.
Right.
So it was kind of just, I don't know, I just tried it. I guess I didn't really know what to
Mhm.
expect. I didn't know what I was doing. I just did whatever anybody told me to do. I was just
Sure.
like, sure, I'll try, I'll go for it. So yeah.
Well, like, how do you attest for that? Because like a lot of the people I've talked to is like, oh, I dabbled in this for 5 months, I dabbled in this for 6 months, and then all of a sudden you're like a superstar. Like you fit, you're second in you right, like you're second in the region. Like you've only been doing it for a few months. Besides like the gymnast background and um,
Track and
like a
field.
track and field, right? So you had a scholarship to go to college to run. So I mean, the skill set was there, right? So like,
Yeah.
what was it about CrossFit that kind of brought out those other, I don't want to say like skills, but like those other, I don't know, like that other competitive edge, or like what was it about CrossFit that kind of started setting you apart from everybody else?
I think it was something I always had in me,
Hmm.
from the moment I was brought into this world,
Right.
because honestly, ever since I can remember as a little girl, I've always been super competitive.
Hmm.
So with my background, I had gymnastics, track and
Right.
field, I skateboarded, I did everything
Right.
with sports and I loved it. And I think I found a sense of peace in sports because in school I was bullied a lot my junior and senior year. And so sports was kind of like my outlet to keep me sane, keep me at peace, keep me
Hmm.
happy, keep my mind busy.
Hmm.
Because I'm a very like high. I have a lot of energy.
Hmm.
Um, as even I'm 31 right now, and I have a ton of energy. And so like I think like sports was something that I could like, kind of like get my energy out in,
Sure.
and then come home and I'd be a little more relaxed.
Hmm.
But I even as a kid, like all day at home, I would just be playing and running and doing a bunch of stuff, and
Hmm.
I'd always be trying. Anything I would do at gym, anything I'd do at gymnastics, it'd always come home and I'd keep practicing.
Sure.
I would never stop practicing.
Hmm.
And I think with CrossFit, that's kind of what happened. Is just like I found something I kind of enjoyed doing,
Hmm.
because if I don't enjoy it, I'm not going to do it. I'm
Right.
either 100% in or 100% out. I'm not going to be like you're like, oh, I like it, it's okay, because once I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm not really enjoying it, I'm going to be done.
Hmm.
Because for me, I just don't see that. It's just wasting my time, and it's wasting coaches time, it's wasting athletes time that like want to be in that position
Hmm.
that I am in. And if I'm not enjoying it, somebody else could be enjoying it,
Right.
and it's not fair to them that I'm in that position. So with CrossFit, I think, I don't know, I just liked it. It was just like
Hmm.
it fit my personality. It was like, oh, gotta do this, gotta do
Right.
that, gotta do this,
Right.
gotta do that.
Right.
And yeah, I don't think anybody made me competitive. I think that's just something I literally had inside me my entire life. Because like I said, once I saw Dominique Mosciano
Right.
and learned what gymnastics was, it was like you couldn't stop me from being an athlete after that moment.
after you started performing well at the CrossFit and the regionals and things like that, were there like glimpses of this Olympic weightlifting superstar, like kind of like mixed in a little bit with any of those competitions where you just like smoking everybody and it's like, wow, I mean, I mean, because just like your stature, it doesn't seem like you're like the prototypical, like CrossFit athlete or whatnot. I mean, I don't, it just. So was there something like, wow, she has a great snatch, great clean and jerk, like she's crushing this power jerk stuff? Like, was there somebody else like with you along the way that was kind of like whispering in your ear, like, hey, you know what? After 2 or 3 of these regionals, if it doesn't work out, then maybe you can transition, like even before Chad called?
Sure. Yeah. I forgot to mention I did weightlifting when I was younger, age
Okay.
15,
Okay.
to get better at track and field.
Okay.
So I had already known what the snatch, clean, and jerk
Okay.
was.
Okay.
So when I went to CrossFit, somebody's like, have you ever Oli lifted? And I'm like, oh, what? And they're like, Oli. And I'm like, what is Oli? I have no idea.
Right.
And so they're like, Olympic lifting, like snatch and clean and jerk. I was like, you mean weightlifting?
Right.
So like, I kind of knew what it was going in. And that's when I had already experienced it when I was younger. So I knew how to move and not good,
Right.
just I knew how to move. I guess it was when I was doing, I don't know, I always knew that I was strong for my size.
Right.
Because I had the highest vertical at my team for volleyball. I was a very quick learner. I got to muscle up within like the second day of CrossFit. Like he showed me one, I did it. It wasn't like we were learning how to do it. It was just like 17 minutes of him showing me some drills, us going over some things, and I got it. So it's like I was always a quick learner. And Chad Wesley Smith from Juggernaut, he picked me up in 2014, and that was the year I almost made the CrossFit Games. I would have been the smallest athlete to ever make the CrossFit Games. Unfortunately, I didn't. I got 4th, like I said. But at that time, it was like I knew that I was strong, but I was never interested in weightlifting because I didn't know if I'd like it.
Right.
It just looked boring. I mean, you lift. Woo! You lift every freaking day. Like snatch, clean and jerk, squat, accessory.
Right.
And then we're going to do hang snatch, hang clean and jerk, deficit pulls. And it's like, so it's like always a variety of like exactly what you think. It doesn't take a genius to, I mean, I shouldn't say this because Max is going to kill me, but but it doesn't take like a ton of effort to figure out the right formula.
Sure.
It's like you have these lifts, do different variations of these lifts, and you'll get better. Especially someone like me that I wasn't good technically, and I wasn't that great at lifting when I first joined. So any kind of strength cycle was going to really help me improve quickly. I wasn't going to be the best lifter technically, but I might be the strongest lifter in my weight class.
So then after you transition out of CrossFit and you embark on this Ollie journey, right, through after the fact with Chad and Max, like how did you approach training differently? Like was there like your first meet, did you qualify for nationals right away? Like how did that start progressing after CrossFit?
So after I talked to Chad, we immediately said, you have to get signed up for a competition. And I was in Colorado at the time. So I was in Fort Collins, Colorado, living. And Chad was like, the first thing you need to do is you need to qualify for the American Open finals, which had been in December. And like I said, I called Chad up in September. So Chad was like, do just a local sanctioned meet, which means USAW, the United States Weightlifting Committee, approves that it's a national qualifying meet. So I did this meet and I qualified. I mean, it was pretty, I don't want to say this because I'm trying not to sound not cocky. I'm just like very honest. And I qualified very easily. The numbers are super low. Numbers like that for someone at the level I was already at was not hard to qualify. So I qualified all I had to do was hit my openers, and then we kind of went for PRs.
Sure.
And then I went to the American Open finals, I think it was 9 weeks later, and I got second to Kathleen Winters in the 48 kilo class. At the time it was 48 because the body weight classes hadn't changed yet. And I had no idea what I did, but my coaches were super pumped, or my coach Max was like super pumped. He's like, you did it. You qualified for an international team. Like, how do you feel? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what to feel, because I didn't know what I did.
Right.
I was just clueless with the sport. So that's kind of how it happened. And I medaled at my first international meet, which again, I had no idea what I did. I remember Kathleen Winters coming up to me and she's like, do you even realize what you did? And I'm like, no. She's like, I don't even think Morgan King medaled at one of her international meets. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, no idea. So it's pretty cool though. I actually realized a year later, after the Pan Am Championships, that I was like, oh wow, I'm pretty good, because I medaled at my first international meet, and then I realized how hard it is to medal. So it was kind of like it hit me like a year later how good I actually was in the sport.
So that was going to be my next question. So so you realized a year after that you medaled at your first international competition. It seems like what was your approach then for that first nationals? Like, you talked to Chad and you qualify at a local meet and you hit the numbers immediately, and then you show up 9 weeks later. Like, does your mindset change? Or are you just like, I don't want to say like happy-go-lucky, like I'm happy to be here type of thing, but I mean, those competitions, like, they're very, I mean, for my weight class, like I there's no way I would ever make it, right, in the supers. But like for someone just kind of really new to the sport, I mean, like a baby, really, you're setting it on fire right out the bat. Like, what do you, like mentally, like how were you preparing any differently, or was it just, you just show up, see what happens? Oh, I finished second and I qualified for an international team.
Sure. Like, so ask me that question one more time.
So like your mindset, like you qualified for American Open, right? Your first meet, you did a local meet, you hit your openers, and then you went for records. And then you show up 9 weeks later and you finish second and you qualify for an international team. Like, how did you approach that? How did you approach the American Open finals? Like, was it just like show up and see what happens, or
show up and see what happened? And that's it. Honestly, I didn't think I liked the sport, so I just wasn't going to put my heart and soul into it. I just was like, let's see how it goes. I was actually pretty nervous because it had been my first weight cut as a 48, and it was really, really hard. So I was like really shaky and really unstable, and I just didn't know how to handle the weight cut at the time, because currently I've been sitting at like 55 kilos. And to cut down to 48 was in 9 weeks. So 55 to 48 in 9 weeks. That was tough. If I had to do it all over again, I'd be a 55 or I'd be a 53. I would just say, screw it. I'll just build, my strength over time. But at the moment, that was like where Chad was like, you can get the stipend, you can qualify for international levels. This is where you'll excel in. But yeah, no, nothing. Honestly, it was just like go in and compete and have fun, and whatever Max puts on the bar, lift it.
So tell me about like that transition. So before you had your CrossFit coach, and now you're working with like one of the most badass teams on the planet, right? Like Chad calls you, you're working with Max, like two of the best coaches, arguably in the United States.
Sure.
Like, did you like realize like what you were getting into at the time? Like, did you like have an idea of like, oh, Max coaches all these great athletes, Chad's a superstar from, powerlifting. He was a great thrower in college, like trying to qualify for the Olympic trials. Like, how, like, did you know, like, or was it just, they're just a couple people that want to, help me with my weightlifting career?
Sure. Yeah. Right. Well, like I said, I started working, I had known Chad already for a few years. And I've been working with Chad now for 6 years. So, and he's been literally the best sponsor I've ever worked with. And he has been loyal and he's kept his word, and he's never really expected anything of me except just to be a stellar athlete. And I think some sponsors don't understand how hard that is, and they expect so much more from you, which I understand. But at the same time, I'm like, you gotta see it from our point too. For Max, so I already worked with Max once. And this is kind of a funny story because the first time I worked with Max, I was at the 2014, which was the year I hurt my shoulder. I was going to nationals in Salt Lake City, and I had hurt my shoulder, and I was like, I couldn't really do anything. I couldn't even like jerk the bar. I think I was like jerking 165 pounds off the blocks, and I couldn't get it off my shoulders. Like my mind just wouldn't let me push it up over my head. So I took I ended up not going to that competition. I ended up going. I didn't do much because my shoulder was bothering me. And then after that competition, I didn't do any CrossFitting, any barbell work, or any bar work. So any like kipping toe to bar,
Sure.
chest bar, all that stuff. And so I took several months off, and we're talking like July, August, September, October, November, December, all the way to that point. I was just like not doing much. So I decided, because I couldn't front squat and hold the bar because it hurt so bad, I did back squat instead.
Okay.
So all I did was worked on from July to December, because I planned on doing the American Open finals.
Right.
I was like, I'm just going to specifically work on back squats, and I'm going to do them well. So I'm going to start really low in weight, and I'm just going to work on my technique. As my technique improves, my strength will improve. So, and that's when I started loading the bar. And at this time, I didn't have a coach. I didn't have any programming I was following. I was doing everything myself alone. So then fast forward to when I went to the American Open finals, and I showed up, and Chad was there, and he's like, "Hey, little one." And I was like, "What's up?" He's like, "Are you ready?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "So what are your openers?" And I'm like, what did I say? 137. And he's like, no. Kilos. He goes, "Alyssa, kilos. This is weightlifting, not CrossFit."
Right.
I just started laughing. He goes, "Who's coaching you?" I was like, "I don't know." I just showed up expecting to compete. I had no thoughts about like having a coach, knowing my openers, doing any sort of weight cut or doing any weight gain. I just showed up to compete like a CrossFitter would.
Right.
No idea.
Right.
So I went in, and that's when Chad was like, "Come here, I'm going to introduce you to some of my friends." And that's when he introduced me to Max, Ada, and Joe, Max's wife. And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll work with them." And Max was just like Max. He was just like, "Oh, hi." And I was like, "Hi." And Chad literally said to him, like, "Whatever you put on the bar, she will lift. So just put it on the bar, she'll lift it." They told him about my shoulder injury, and I kind of explained to Max and Joe more about my shoulder injury, and saying like, I haven't lifted clean and jerk and snatch in a long, long time, since July. So I don't know what's going to happen. He's like, "Okay." So kind of hesitant, like, why is she here? Like, okay. And we ended up doing super well. We ended up getting second to an Olympian, Melanie Roach, in the snatch, I believe it was. And then I ended up getting fourth in the clean and jerk, and I PR'd my clean and jerk. So I got a silver in the snatch, nothing in the clean and jerk, but I PR'd it. So I was really excited. And then in the total, I got bronze. I got third. So I left with no training, no strength training, except back squats. I mean, that's strength training. So, but like, how many times a week could I do back squats? I think I did them like 2 to 3 times a week. I mean, I could have done them 6, but
yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's how I met Max. And after that, Joe asked me to be on the team. And I was just like, "No, I'm doing CrossFit. I'm just doing my own thing." And that's when 2 years passed. I stopped doing CrossFit, and then I called Chad up. See, I called Chad. Chad just suggested the idea that I be a weightlifter because I was like, I wanted to work with Max. And no, I'm not really one to, and I think it's just because I really don't know why. But I wasn't really like intimidated working with Max. I kind of just was like, hey, Chad, I really want to work with Max. And Chad was like, sure, I'll get you like hooked up with him. And I was like, okay, cool. And so literally the next 2 days I started talking to him. And then same thing kind of happened with my nutrition coaches, Renaissance Periodization, which is a pretty big company.
Right.
I started talking to Nick Shaw, the CEO of the company. And I was just like, hey, I need help weight cutting. And they just both like jumped on the bandwagon right away, helped me. I'm a pretty dedicated person, and I'm very loyal, and I'm very honest. And I think the biggest thing is I'm very loyal, and that's why Chad still works with me to this day. So if you see athletes jumping from sponsorship to sponsorship to sponsorship, there's either something wrong with the sponsor or something wrong with the athlete.
Right.
Because I mean, there's some loyalty issue there, because I don't feel like I change sponsorships often, because I just enjoy working with people that are loyal to me,
right.
And then I'm loyal back. So I think that's kind of why I'm not too nervous to work with Max or Chad, because I know who I am.
Right. So does that make it easier than when you compete? Like, I don't want to jump ahead too far, but knowing that Chad and Max are behind you no matter what, like whether you have a great performance or maybe it's not as spectacular, where you don't have to worry about coming home and like, oh man, like, are they going to pull the plug? Like, am I going to lose this? Like, what's going to happen? So what, what does that feel like then? Like, because you've had really great performances all along the way, right? I mean, it's not like, you PR and you finished fourth in the clean and jerk. it's still a win. Like my college.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
Right. Like if we PR and they don't do as well, like finishing wise, like they can't get over themselves.
Right.
And it's difficult for me working with an 18 and a 19-year-old, like Division III, like we're not in scholarship. So there isn't a carrot dangling in front of them. And to understand, you PR, like you made the finals, like you finished 6th or 7th. No, it's not good enough. And I'm like, well, today it wasn't. Like today was your best performance. And it just takes a long time. But as an adult, like you finished 4th, you PR. Like did that bother you? Like you came home with 2 medals, right? Like did you start realizing like this should probably be the direction that I start going towards?
So it's kind of funny. The fact that I just went after it without even knowing what I was capable of or what expectations people had for me was already brave in my eyes. So getting 4th, or let me back up. Getting 4th in the beginning was easy because I didn't care about the sport. I was just like, weightlifting, I'm just going to do it just to do it.
Right.
Getting 4th at my second Pan Ams was hard. It was really hard. I felt like I had lost because I didn't medal.
Right.
But a lot of people had high expectations. And that's where being a perfectionist for me is bad. Because then I expect if I don't get first, or I don't win, or I don't PR, or my lifts don't go perfectly, then I failed. I walk out of there with these expectations that are unrealistic. And so 4th in the beginning was fine. Who cares? No big deal. It's just, It's whatever. It's fun. I'm doing this for no purpose.
Right.
But 4th, when you care about the sport and want to do the best you can, and you're trying to make an Olympic team, that is when 4th becomes almost like a failure, because you didn't stand on top of that podium. And it can get hard at times, but yeah, but I see it differently now again, because I'm not like caught up in that stuff anymore. I feel like it. I'm still very competitive, but the fact that I got in there and dared greatly, that I could just be an athlete and be at that level, was really awesome. And that's it.
So was that 2018 that, or 2017?
Yes, that was 2000, because 2017 would have been my first Pan Ams because
Right.
I was 2018. Mm-hmm.
So did anything change like mentally between those first two competitions? Like, I mean, you made it you medaled the first go around, and then you're approaching the second one. Like, not so much like your training and things like that, because you have Max that's kind of taking care of that for you. But did you approach it differently, like mentally? Like, I don't know,
There
did
was
you
a
make
lot more pressure.
a lot more pressure? So is
A
that
lot more
more
pressure.
self-induced from you, USA weightlifting, like just like, oh my gosh, like now I should win this time because now I think I know what I'm doing, or I have a bigger support system or a stronger support system this go around?
All of it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of support.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot on the line. There was a lot of high expectations from the coaches, not just from Max, but from Puros and Mike Gattel and everybody. And just being, I knew at that moment when I was in that chair at Pan Am's that winning a medal the year before meant a lot, because that year I was like seeing the numbers, like for the 48 kilo class, like they were high and they were hard to hit.
Right.
And I wasn't quite at that level. So it was really hard to see me win a medal and then go from medaling to like possibly not even getting like top 9.
Right.
And I think I just put a lot, it's nobody's fault but my own. And I completely claim it because I put the expectations and I put it all on myself. It's if I don't perform well, I'm upset. I get upset for a while. It's not just like I get over it within like the week. It takes me months to get over it. It takes me months to be like, I could have done better here. I could have done better there. But that's how I am. And I like hate it though, because it becomes to the point where like you start hating your sport, because it's like I start getting so hard on myself that I start just performing bad because I'm so hard on myself.
Now, for athletes like yourself, or you're world class, is there, when you're thinking about these things, like, is there, like, do you have somebody that you can talk to about that, like besides like Chad or Max or Joe? Like, is there somebody else that you can like bounce these ideas off of, where you maybe you don't feel like you're going to be judged by them, or it's just like a sounding board on, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now about the sport?
Yeah, so my boyfriend's really, really awesome at showing me the light at the end of the tunnel, that weightlifting's not your life.
Right.
And weightlifting doesn't define who you are. And your life is not just about lifting heavy.
Right.
And about medals. It's about how you went into the sport, you tried, you failed, you had great times, you had bad times, you had success. He goes, those medals at the end of the day, this is a good story.
Right.
There was one time, so this is a really good story actually. I had a bunch of medals and trophies, and we're talking like 150 medals from my gymnastics career. And anywhere's from 4th place to 1st place. And I was a very good gymnast. I will not be modest about that because I loved that sport. And I had, I think, 60, 70 trophies, and they were all in a box at my mom's for years and years and years. And then I picked them up when we moved back to Ohio, probably two years ago. And they sat in the box for years and years. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many medals I bring home or how many trophies I bring home. What matters is my memories and the times that I made amazing in the sport that I played. Because nobody's going to remember who got 3rd place. Nobody's going to remember who got 1st place like 3-4 years ago. What they're going to remember is what's happening now. Right. Look at Kate Nye. She came into the sport, and now everybody is like eyes on her. She, her. And it's like kind of like I love Maddie to death, but Maddie kind of like got pushed to the back for a minute. And like, if Maddie let that affect her, which she didn't, she continued on being Maddie Rogers,
Right.
she would be pushed out of the sport because of herself, because of herself being affected by that. So it's just like being able to know that and have that support from my boyfriend, and having him help me realize that, like, you're not your sport. You are Alyssa Ritchey, like a human being that has good days and bad days, and it's okay. You're not meant to be like perfect or this amazing athlete all the time. That it helps me brings me back down to earth and realize that, like, there's more to life than just sports. So yeah, I talked to Ben, which is my boyfriend. We've been together for 5 years. And then I talked to a sports psychologist that USAW actually provides us with. And he's actually great. I always think I don't need to talk to him. And then when I talk to him, I'm like, oh, that made me feel so much better.
Sure.
So it's like, I do need to talk to him, but I just like, I don't know. I just, that perfectionist personality, you think got it all under control, but you don't.
Right. So 2019 was a pretty good bounce back year, right? I guess if you, so when you come home in 2018 and you finished fourth, so you're off the podium, do you and Max and Chad sit down and you kind of like start figuring out, okay, this is how we're going to come back in 2019? Or do you say, listen, I need to take some time, give me a couple weeks. Like, I don't know, like I competed in powerlifting, so it was difficult to keep, 4 or 5 meets a year. You burn out after a while. So did you kind of like take a little time to like reassess the situation? Like, or was it, we're going to go all out and see what happens? Because that's when USA weightlifting, like the Olympic Federation, they kind of started changing the standards around, right? For you have to compete so many times and you have to have like the 6A sessions or 6 gold, whatever the qualification process. So talk about, okay, the competition's over and now we need to move forward with 2019.
Yeah. So what happened is after the Pan Ams in 2018, we had 2018 Worlds, and I believe that was in Turkmenistan. Right. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So that was right after July, which is when I think it was July. I might have my dates wrong, but I'm just going to kind of give you like a bad timeline.
Sure. That's fine.
Yeah. In July is when IWF finally was like, well, we're changing our body weight categories to this, and this. And we're like, all right, well, we got to either figure out if we're going to gain or lose. We were hoping for a 50 kilo class, but unfortunately we got a 49, which is 1 kilo more at least.
Right.
And that's kind of when we had to make a decision, like, were we going to go to Worlds and give it our all, or were we going to go to Worlds and stay safe? Well, all the coaches, Piros and Mike, I would say Mike. Piros doesn't really like do a lot for like that kind of stuff. I would say Mike does a lot more.
Sure.
Mike Gatone was like, we need to play it safe because we want to get Robies and we want to make sure you actually get Robies for the Olympics. Robies are the points that you accumulate to make the Olympic team.
Right.
So that's kind of when that all happened. I basically took 2018 was a horrible year of competition. Some reason Max thought I needed to compete like every meet. No joke. And it was because of fear of not making the world team, which would have been the first gold meet for the Olympics.
Right.
So what happened was I competed 6 times that year. I made 6 weight cuts, which is horrible for your body. Horrible. Stupid, actually. But I didn't know. I just literally kind of just did what my coach told me. And I think that kind of affected my performance a lot in Turkmenistan. No break, just constantly weight cutting. It just gets to you. So that's kind of the beginning of it all. And then we went to Pan Ams. So Worlds in Turkmenistan was in September. Yeah, late September. And then we had October off, November off, and then I went to the American Open finals. Right. But I was safe. I was completely safe. Like I had put up a good enough total to be on the Pan Am team, so there's really no need for 2018, I believe, I forget, honestly. I think I actually did have to go there because, because Morgan King was fighting for a spot on the team. Haley Reichardt was fighting for a spot. And then I think that's it, just the three of us. So I could have potentially been like bumped off the team.
Right.
And that was the meet that I hit that huge 105 at, which was like a game changer in the clean and jerk. And when I hit that, like that was a lot of, that was for me to prove to the coaches that I was capable and I was ready. Like I was tired of taking these low numbers that there was like nothing necessary for me to take. Like I was taking numbers that like I was well aware I could make on the stage and I was ready and capable. So like American Open was kind of like my redemption meet. Like I was like, you guys watch, I'm going to do these and I'm going to do them well. And you're going to give me these numbers at Pan Am's in 2019. So we had a break. Finally, I had a break after 6 weight cuts in 2018. I finally had Christmas dinner, which was lovely. I didn't get a birthday cake.
Right.
I didn't get Thanksgiving dinner. I didn't get any kind of stuff that year. And I think honestly, it was just like not making weight cuts and eating, like getting big. I was like 54 something, training body weight, which not a lot of people knew. I just kind of trained under my radar because I was like, I'm not cutting and I'm not going to train low because I just don't feel good.
Right.
So I'm just not going to do it like that. And then I went into Pan Am's and it was just, we had a big training. So we finally had like I think we had like a 12-week training cycle, which was the longest one I've had in a year. And I didn't mess around with body weight. I let myself get big and I just trained like a monster. And that's kind of how like it went from Worlds to Pan Am's.
So when you get to Pan Am's then in 2019, so do you know like like I'm gonna crush this, like there's no doubt in my mind, or was there still a little bit of like trepidation from like I don't know how like elite, like you know you read like the literature and you know being the nerd, like you know everyone you forget the last experience and you try and tell the kids, like from my perspective, like you know just put it behind you. But for someone like yourself where you medal, you're off the podium, and now you're trying to come back, like was there any like fear or concern in your mind, or was like we're gonna you know mull through this competition, piece of cake?
Yeah, sure. So when we got there, the weight cut was kind of awful. It was really like my weight was not really coming off well, and so I had to do a lot of rounds of the sauna in my bedroom because we had this portable sauna. But it wasn't coming off bad. It just wasn't coming off as fast as we had anticipated it to come off. So after I got done, I went down and weighed in, which was successful. I was like 49.00, which we always try to be the heaviest we can be because there's no sense of being smaller. And that's when I was starting to get really sick. I started eating and I started drinking again. And all of a sudden I started feeling like my body was just like shocked. Like, oh shoot, water. Oh shoot, food. Like, what is this? It was just like in shock. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is not good. And I was just like standing up, leaning over the desk, like going to vomit. I'm going to die. Like right here is where I die. Like it was bad. It was like to the point of like, I don't even know where I was. And the doctor, I remember the doctor looking at me and being like, Alyssa, are you okay? And I was like, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. Everything's good. And I just stood there and my face was like pale. And I was just like, it was not good. Like, and don't get me wrong, this is not smart. I mean, like, I feel like no high level elite sport is very smart, especially the stuff we put our bodies through. It's just hard on them. And I just remember like, I mother freaking ruined it. I ruined it. I'm not going to be able to perform well. My body's not going to be able to do it again. Like, again, it's my fault. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I am never going to be able to get on that stage and get the numbers that we anticipated coming in and doing, which I think at the time we anticipated ending with like an 83 snatch. And, oh yeah, duh, we hit it. So the numbers were supposed to be 83 on the third lift of the snatch, and then 107 for the third lift of the clean and jerk. And I was just like, there's no way. There's just no way. I feel like awful. So Max is like, comes in and he sees me. He's like, he tries to pretend everything's okay, because I tell him, if you tell me I'm feeling bad, the problem is I will feel bad. But if you tell me I'm fine and I will feel good, I will feel good eventually. So he takes me downstairs. He's like, let's go get outside. And we're in the Dominican Republic. There ain't much, nothing is nice when you go to these international meets. Everybody's like, when they compete, this is the funny part. When people compete in nationals versus an international level competition, it's completely different. A national level, you have like your hometown, you have your food, you have the bed you want, the pillow you want. You have a lot of good things in the United States. But when you go to like Thailand and Pattaya, or you go to Dominican Republic, or you go to Guatemala, or you go to all these foreign countries, you are sleeping on a cardboard bed with a pillow that is as flat as a freaking girl that doesn't squat's butt. And it's like, everything is just terrible. You can't drink the water. The food's not right. Everything. The bus ride to get to competition at the Dominican, which was the 2019 Pan American Championships, was 1 hour in a hot bus, no air conditioning, with 40 people. So we're riding over there, and I'm feeling awful, and there's an athlete area. Ready for this? It is right above the bleachers with a cardboard wall and beds that are like stained with like Coca-Cola, stained with like juice, like gross. So we're laying in this really loud arena where the competition floor is like right down below us. And I was just like, I put my headphones on and they're noise canceling. So I just turned on Ariana Grande super loud. And I was just like laying there. And so I like closed my eyes and I kept eating. And I was just like, listen, I was like, there's two things you can do right now. You can make the choice. You either feel awful and just be a baby and go out there and compete like you usually do. Bad. I mean, I usually don't compete bad, but that's how I thought. Like basically like last Pan Am Championships. And you can just kind of just do mediocre. Or you can go out there, crush the weights that you're supposed to crush, and have the time of your life. Treat it like a training camp. Treat it like you're training with the best women in the world. Because I was training with the best women in the world. And so that's what I did. And at that moment, I got off my bed. I turned Ariana Grande's A Different Song on, and I started dancing. Because I was like, at this moment, if I don't change my attitude, if I don't change what I'm thinking inside my head, I'm going to let these negative thoughts win, and I'm going to perform poorly. So we had 5 minutes until we had to go down to warm up, and that's like when everything started hitting. And then Max and Mike Gatone were like, all right, Liz, it's time to go down. So we went down to the warm-up area, and that's when I was just like, I was just chugging water, chugging and just trying to get my belly as fat as possible, like bloated, just trying to get my oomph back to my body. So I could feel my legs and I could feel my belly again push into my belt, and like everything was like coming back. And it was coming back slowly, but it was coming. And I was just like, all right, I'm fine. I'm going to do this. And I started laughing and joking around. I started smiling and waving at my competition, kind of like to put the fear into their eyes. Like, I'm fine. Are you fine? So yeah, that's kind of like what all happened. And from that moment on, I just knew that it was going to be the perfect competition, because I was just like, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to go out there and perform like I've never performed before. I'm just going to go out there and just attack. No feeling sorry for myself, and no holding anything back. And that's what I did, is I didn't hold anything back. I went there and competed like Alyssa competed in the beginning of the sport.
So how do you, like, because you can't really like prepare for that, right? You can't prepare for an hour bus ride, you know, with 40 other athletes, like sleeping conditions, food, water. Like like, how do you, I mean, like you overcome so much and you haven't even stepped foot in the, you know, to warm up yet. And you've gone through all this stuff. You like flip a switch. Like, was there anything like from your past that was like, listen, you need to like get the show on the road here? Like, I know you said you switch a song, you start dancing and you start getting ready. But like, can you learn that? Like, is there, like, I've been trying to figure this out for like 15 years coaching college kids. And if
Sure.
if there's ever any deviation, some like when you go to Division III nationals for track, the athletes check in with their coach, but then the athletes are kind of like herded off by themselves, so there's no contact.
Sure.
So the first couple times that happened with kids, they were horrible performances because I was 22, like I'd never been there before. But then after, you know, working with the kids now, I'm like, they're gonna usher you off, you can't talk to me, but you're gonna be cool, you can keep your headphones. So you could kind of like teach them or kind of like practice for that. But for this, you're not really able to do that, right? Even though you've done the weight cuts, you've done this, like how do you, I mean, is it just as easy as hitting that switch and saying, you know what, we're here, like we're gonna crush it because that's what we came to do? I'm just trying to like dig into, because it's so fascinating. Like, you're such a fascinating person. Like, the story, so, you know, it's awesome. But for some, like a, you know, average, you know, person who just works out like me, like I don't know what that feels like. Like, how do you
Sure.
like get, how do you do that? Like, how do you flip that switch, or how do you,
It doesn't
you know?
happen like that every time.
Right.
I tried to flip the switch the next year at Worlds in
Mm-hmm.
2019. Yeah,
2019.
2019.
Right.
And I tried to flip the switch
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't flip. And I kept trying to flip it and flip it and flip it, and it was just not flipping. And
Right.
I realized that moment that there's nothing I can do. I had no adrenaline after the weight cut. The weight cut
Right.
was really hard at
Right.
Worlds. And I literally I drained. I had a 5.5 hour weight cut, and that's not normal.
Right.
Usually my weight cut's done like within 2 hours, 2.5 the most.
Mm-hmm.
And this time it was just 5.5 hours. And I was just like, my adrenaline was gone.
Right. Right.
So I don't I think there's a degree, there's a level that you can,
Mm-hmm.
there's a small amount you can teach to someone, but that person has got to learn how to use it and how to turn it on themselves. It's like when you're in a terrible relationship and the person, you keep telling that person, like, your friend keeps telling you, get out of it, get out of it, get
Right.
out of it. And you're
Right.
like, it's fine, I'm fine, I can handle it. And then finally, when you start realizing a year later, like your friend was right,
Right.
and you get out of it, you put your friend's advice to work, and we're like, oh, okay, I get it now. It's kind of like that for learning how to have the proper mindset and a good mindset for sports and weightlifting. If you don't put the work in, like you put the work in your training and your diet, in
Right.
your recovery, you're not going to get that mindset. I don't think I ever worked on my mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just wanted it so bad that I would do anything and everything I could to get it without anybody telling me what to do. My parents were super supportive, always. And I think a huge part of that comes from my parents being supportive.
Mm-hmm.
My dad would always be on the sideline rooting for me in the 100-meter hurdles at track meets. And sometimes he would yell the stupid word jambalaya. And he did it because it calmed my nerves and it like made me laugh and it
Sure.
made me remember, like, this is fun.
Right.
Like, this isn't life or death. You're not battling cancer. You're battling girls for a spot at regionals.
Right.
You know, it's like,
Right.
it's not that big of a deal. So I think the thing is like just remembering like your why. Like, I know that's so like people think it's corny, but it's like,
Right.
it really is. It's like, why are you there? Are you there because you just want that gold medal? Because that gold medal is going to be sitting in that box when you're 30 years old. You're not even going to remember where it is. It's going to collect dust.
No.
Or is your why because you're like, I freaking love this sport. I love how strong I'm getting. I love the idea of being an amazing athlete and a role model to young women and being able to show them that you can be a strong woman and you can have muscles and you can be confident and strong-minded. Like you don't have to let people step all over you. It's okay to be you and who you are. Like that's my why. Like I do it because I generally I just love to do the sport. I love the way it makes me feel. I love feeling strong. I love feeling confident. I just like everything about it. And so like teaching that mindset, I know you can teach it, but the person has got to learn how to utilize it. And if they don't want to take the time to learn, they're never going to be able to master it.
Right. So like, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, so I was just gonna say, so you mastered it at 2019 Pan American Games. So when you're on the podium, right, and you hear the national anthem, like what, what happens then? Like are you thinking like, oh my gosh, like my life is like changed now, like I have all it, or is it just I'm just still Alyssa, like the next day, you know, we're just gonna chill out here and have a good time and then we get back to training in like a couple weeks? Like what?
Sure.
Like what happened? Like what goes through your mind when that's happening?
I cried
Mm-hmm.
because it was the first time that I said when I started the sport that I'm going to make sure that we hear the national anthem when I compete. And I did. I heard the national anthem of our country and I was just like overwhelmed. And so did Max. Max cried too, which was, Joe said that's like the first time he's ever cried, that she's ever seen him cry. So like to like know that my coach cried and to see him, like honestly, when that national anthem was playing, I looked for my coach and he was standing right in front of me and looking me directly in the eyes. And that's like the moment I was just like, we did it.
Right.
Like if we don't go anywhere else, if we don't make the Olympic team, if this is it in my weightlifting career, like we did it.
Right.
And like nothing else mattered in that moment. Like everything I did was we just nailed it. Executed it perfectly. We came in there, we hit all 6 lifts, we broke all 3 records, all Pan American records for total clean and jerk snatch. And it's just like we won 3 gold medals and we did it. And it was just like it was overwhelming. And it was just like I was so excited. I wanted to share it to the world. It was just like it's a feeling I'll never ever forget. It's something that I've always wanted to accomplish, like a feeling like that. And I did. I accomplished it. But did it change me? No. Like, did I change? I mean, maybe my following went up, a big deal. Like, I don't do this for a number on Instagram. I do this because I love doing it. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy inspiring others. At the end of the day, if like no one was there to watch or see what I did, I was there. Right. So that's all that matters. So like, no, I don't think like I changed. I was I'm saying Alyssa, crazy and weird.
Well, crazy and weird, it definitely works for you, I guess, right?
Yes.
It's worked so far, right? For 31. All right.
31 years.
31 years it's worked. So this Corona stuff is going on right now, right? And like, so for athletes like yourself, like, you know, nationals has been moved to December. You know, the Olympics are, you know, another 18 months away now. Like what, like moving forward, like, is it like you're still in the, like the protocol, like to qualify? Like I don't know enough about like how the points work for the Olympics and things. Cause people have explained to me, well, there isn't like an Olympic, like track, there's an Olympic trials. If you finish in the top 3 and you hit a certain number, like you go. Where Olympic weightlifting, it's not like that. So for you, like next steps, is this like a little bit of downtime? Like you don't have to, you know, the next meet might not be until December. Hopefully there's a meet in December, right? Like what do you do to prepare and get ready now?
So This
I know
has
that
not
was a
been.
lot. I'm sorry.
No. It's not. It's a lot because I haven't talked about it yet. And I think like it's okay for me to talk about. So it's kind of like, I'll just shorten it up. I'm a very big storyteller.
Mhm.
I know when I talk. So how do I say this without sounding like a total douche? Okay, so back when I competed so after I came back from the American Open finals in 2019, I had missed qualifying for the Pan Am Games, the Pan Am Championships, which was the last competition I needed to go and qualify for the Olympics, which would have been I would have been in a great position because I would have been the top 49.
Right.
So we thought. So then without anybody telling me or knowing a direction what my next step should be, I found out that Jordan De La Cruz was cutting to the 49 and going to steal my spot to make the Olympic team, which was very heartbreaking. And it was the same day I found out that I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid. It's when your antibodies attack your thyroid thinking it's like some sort of tumor or cancer of some sort. And it starts eating at your thyroid, and you can get your thyroid, once it's like eaten at or it's porous, it doesn't come back. It just stays. So now I'm on medication, and I've been on medication for 2 months now. Wait, is it April? Maybe 3 months. I've been on medication for 3 months. And rewind back to when I said I was exhausted from CrossFit and I thought it was my diet, overtraining, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It might have been because CrossFit's really hard, but it wasn't. It was totally my Hashimoto's, and we had no idea. So after I got my random blood test done in December, I found out Hashimoto's the same day I found out Jordan De La Cruz was going to replace me as a 49 to go to the Olympics, which she redeemed that 4th spot, which was hard. And still is kind of hard to talk about because I don't think I've come to peace with it just yet, because it's a big deal when people, I just didn't know. I would have competed as a 55 all those 3.5 years that I gave up everything for that stinking spot at the Olympics. And that is why you can't let this stuff define you. And that is why if you don't do well in a sport, you have to have a plan, or you have to have you have to be able to mentally prepare for this stuff, because at any time this could all end. And it did for me. It just ended. There was no okay, it's ending. It was just boom, done. You're done. Your spot's taken. You can't do anything. So what ended up happening is I found out, I'm trying not to be all over the place. It is kind of all over the place story, but I went to Worlds in 2019, and then because I didn't perform well because the weight cut was so hard, I went to Peru. And that's when I found out, after I had not been able to weigh in because my weight cut again did not go well. It did not go well. We just decided not to do it because it wasn't a necessity. But we found out Jordan De La Cruz is going as a 49. And that's, my heart just broke in half. I was just what? When was somebody going to tell me this? That way I at least knew this was coming, or I could have been a 55 and not treated my body so poorly for the last 3.5 years.
Right.
And so, and I don't know if Jordan and Spencer decided to do that at the last minute, or if they decided to do that the whole time.
Right.
But there's just a lot of things, a lot of politics with sports, and there were some things that I saw was just I think you guys have been kind of doing this, and maybe they didn't, I don't know, I could be crazy, but so that happened. And so then I had to go and get my spot at the American Open finals in 2019. I was forced. So I had gone to Worlds, 4 weeks later, gone to Peru, 5 weeks later, gone to American Open finals. It was dead. I don't know how I pulled out the numbers I did at American Open finals, but unfortunately I came short. I was not able to pull out the numbers that I needed to make the Pan Am team in 2020. And so Morgan King and Jordan De La Cruz were the girls that were the top 49s in the country, even though Morgan King's Roby points were lower and still are lower than mine. And if I'm not correct, somebody can correct me, but I'm pretty sure hers aren't as high as mine. So, and so you have to have a certain, the girls that are the top in their weight class that quarter, which is like, let's say 6 months, Morgan King and Jordan De La Cruz were the top 49s in the next 6 months leading up to the Olympics, which was the last 6 months. And I was not. So these girls, Jordan and Morgan, get to sign up for whatever competitions they want. So what do? The smart thing. They signed up for every single competition to block me from signing up for any of them. They planned on going to all of these competitions and just didn't care. They just could show up and weigh in, or they could show up, weigh and compete, but they had to show up and weigh in at 49. That was like the rules.
Sure.
So there was, the first one was Rome, which that's when Jordan hit the 195, the baller total. She did a great job. And and that is the same day, the exact same day I found out I had Hashimoto's, which was like, ugh, it was like a blah, blah, the same day, which sucked. And I couldn't stop crying, and I was just crying and crying and crying. And I just felt betrayed. I just felt like it wasn't fair because no one had told me. And there's a lot that comes with that. And people are like, well, she put up the big total. Like, so what? That's your problem. You should have put it up. 2 things. She got to train at 53 or 54 kilo body weight for freaking 3.5 years. Imagine what kind of strength I could have put on. 3.5 years with staying at that weight and competing at that weight. Huge. Right. I mean, I did it for Pan Ams.
Right.
I mean, we saw it happen.
Right.
I put up that 190 total. We were going into Worlds in 2019 expecting to hit a 197 total. And it was there. The problem is my Hashimoto's got in the way.
Right.
Which, say it all you want, and I don't care if people are like, well, that's your problem. And it is my problem. But that's exactly what happened. It had nothing to do with anything else that happened. Because I did everything the same as for Pan Ams as I did for Worlds. And I prepared no differently for both of them. So I was expecting to have it. And I had the best training I've ever had leading up to 2019 Worlds. So it shocked me when my body was not doing what it was supposed to do. So back to the story, I was not able to sign up for any competitions. So that left me in the dust. And that basically like solidified that I was done. There was nothing I could do. Unless Jordan got hurt or Morgan got hurt, I was the next in line to take the 2020 Pan Am team spot, which would have been kind of cool, because then we could have, see, my thing is if you want to block me, that's your thing. But let me come out and battle.
Right.
Let me come out and do my thing. Be a man up. And let me come out there and just like go head to head, because I'm not all about like trying to be like, oh, just block her and not let her in any meets. Like and it's just a weird process that the second place 49, which is me, wasn't allowed to sign up for any meets. That's like the rules for the IWF. It's like, why is it that the at the last meet for gold for Olympic team qualifications, why isn't it just the best are on the team?
Right.
Why is it like whoever qualifies at that last competition? Because then you just got this random girl that qualifies that sat out all year, and she's just like, I'm going to come in and compete at this meet so I can make Pan Am team. How about those girls that have been competing 6 or 7 times in 1 year to get on the Olympic team? I mean, it just makes no sense. I mean, I might not be making any sense, but
no, it makes perfect sense. I just wonder, like, for coaches and athletes alike, like yourself, like, do you, because like in powerlifting, you can qualify for a national meet, but so like I competed at 110 kilo, so you can qualify if you hit the qualifying total for nationals at 110, and you also hit the 125 total, then you can decide which one you want to do. But you can't go back. You can't go down the other way. Like you can't compete at 125 and say, "Oh, I'm going to go down and compete at 110 now." Like it doesn't work that way.
Right.
So in Olympic weightlifting, that maybe I'm just like I'm not smart enough about it. Why do they let you go down? Like, wouldn't it be like, to me, it just makes sense to go up. Like, okay, if I'm not going to make it in my weight class, I'm going to go up as opposed to coming down. Right. I don't know. Does that make sense, or is it?
Oh, it makes total
Right.
sense. I don't understand it. I don't
Yeah.
understand how we can take girls that aren't even gonna do well in the 80s, like there's no 71 class and there's a 76 class
Right.
going to the Olympics. So Kate Nye is going to go to the 76 class.
Right.
There's going to be all these other great international girls in that 76 class. So like Kate might get like 7th or 8th.
Right.
Or I mean, she might do great. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be like bad vibes to these girls, but like what I'm saying is we're taking like Maddie's going to go from 71 to 87. Like, how can we do that? Like, well, how is that fair?
Right.
I know it's not fair that they took the freaking weight class out for these girls either.
Right.
So like we could play devil's advocate here.
Right.
It's not fair either way. But what's not fair is that IWF in the beginning should have switched it at the beginning of the quad. All the weight classes should have been switched at year 1 of the 2020 quad. It shouldn't have been switched in the middle. That's just unfair to the athletes. But they did that so like all this doping crap would be under control, which you can tell our sport is very dirty. I would say the only not dirty athletes are us USA athletes. Because a lot of the girls in my class got popped a lot. And so what ends up happening is when they get popped for steroids, then you move up places internationally in the world. So then you have a better chance at making the Olympic team. So you can't just do good at the level, national level. You have to do good at the international level when you're at our level competing. It has nothing to do with the national level. So it's like Jenny Arthur and Maddie are going, fighting for that 87 spot.
Which is a huge jump.
Huge jump. Like and then the fact that Jordan can come down to 49, like the last 6 months, like I'm sour about it because it's my spot. And it's like, but it's the same for Maddie and all these other girls. It's like, none of it's fair.
Right.
And who's to say like Jordan doing what she did, like it's smart.
Right.
It would have been, I mean, the fact that she's so young and she can make the weight cut and she has the extra body weight to make the weight cut, like good for her for making it. Am I sour about it? Heck yeah, I'm sour about it. Why? Because it's unfair. And it's like the whole process is like, it's just a mess. They need to clean it up. Next year, it's going to be completely different. They already changed all the rules and everything. Well, next year, who knows next year now? Right. So with the COVID question, there's your answer.
I got it loud and clear. No, I apologize. Like I didn't know. Like I didn't.
No one knows. No. I haven't shared it. I haven't been comfortable to share it. I think it's because number one, I want to make sure that I don't know if I sounded sour pussy, and I probably did a little bit, which is completely okay. I'm allowed to feel how I want to feel. Right. I don't want to bash people. I'm not a people basher. That's not who I am. So I want to make sure that I'm like with a clean and honest, but yet not hurtful to people. And at the point when I was crying on the couch, when I saw Jordan make that total, it would not have been a good thing to talk about. Right. And I think now I'm finally like realizing that the Olympics doesn't define me. It's not my life. It's not even the reason why I started the sport. So why would I be angry at not making the team? Yeah, it's cool, but it's not everything. Right. It really is at the end of the day, it's just the Olympics.
So what do you think about 2024? Like, maybe it's too far away. Like,
nothing.
No.
No, I actually, I've been doing sports since I was 9 and I'm 31 and I've been competitive, really competitive. If I did anything, I mean, it's still hard to say because 2021, I'm still not, I guess, with
You're not out technically, right?
Yeah, I'm not out,
Right.
but I know nothing about what's going to happen. So like, but you don't know, like someone could get injured in that time and then you could be the next one up. And if you're not ready, they're not going to take you.
Right.
So it's really hard to say, like, I don't know where I'm at with everything, even for 2021. All I know is that I am ready to move on and do something different. And I'm ready to kind of share my story, which is really cool because they're actually writing a book about it's going to be really good. Yeah, it's really cool. And I'm not 100% sure what we're going to title it. I have a few awesome titles in works, but I've been doing it for a year now. And I have a co-author, which was the last guest on my podcast. She's helping me write it. Right. And it talks about everything, like from high school sports to bowling to my hardships I had throughout my life, through the great times I had in my life, relationships that nobody knows about, dating, the single life when I was single for 4 years. So it's just a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of cool things in that book. And I'm really excited to release that. So that's something I'm looking forward to this year. And then we're moving. My boyfriend and I are moving. So far we have like Santa Fe, New Mexico on our radar, and then Asheville, North Carolina on our radar. He's in school, so he graduates in September.
Okay. What's he going to school for?
Certified registered nurse anesthetist.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So really the guy that puts you to sleep, the nurse.
Right. Yeah.
So really looking forward to that, but that's all on like standby right now because the COVID, and we're just kind of waiting.
Sure.
Everything's kind of like unknown right now. It's just a weird spot we're all in. And, but I think the number one thing I want to do is I've always wanted to work in healthcare, and I already have a bachelor's in exercise science. So I want to continue education, possibly to be a nurse, and then to get a functional medicine, like, I don't know if they call it certification, I guess you could call it. It's a 17 month course, and you take it and it works with like diet and exercise so that you can prescribe people that to help them with their illnesses, or like it's proactive, not reactive kind of lifestyle. Like we live, you know, like we use diet and exercise as medicine to stay healthy. And so that way we're not getting all these crazy things happening in inside our body. So, and then possibly down the road, maybe nurse practitioner. So that's kind of something I'm looking into. I can't look into anything though till we move, because I got to have a school to go to because I'll have clinicals as a nurse. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
No, I mean, it sounds fun. I mean, it's like you met our oldest. It's like, they don't like, well, Daddy, am I going to go back to school next week? It's like, no, like, you know, people say you can't, like, and I don't know if he'll remember when he's older. Like the middle one, I don't think will. He's only 5. The baby, you know, we don't have to worry about that. But it's so interesting, like how, you know, like you mentioned before, like it took me a long time as an athlete to figure out that, you know, throwing far and squatting a lot didn't define who I am. But for the college kids that I worked with this year, that their senior years were like ripped out from under them, and then it's like,
yeah, that's rough.
You know, like, what do you, like, Coach, what do we do? I'm like, you know, I don't know, you're going to school to be a doctor. Like, don't compete next year. Like, you're going to med school. Like, there's other things. Well, I want to still throw. And it's like, you know, I don't know. Like, I try and help them as best as I can. But it's really like, you know, I can't justify telling a college kid to spend $60,000 for 10 weeks of an outdoor track season. Like, I just can't. I just can't do that. And there hasn't been much guidance. Like, I don't know, like we're in New York, we're totally shut down until the 15th.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I mean, fortunately we have a garage gym. Like, I bring the boys down there with me. Like, I showed them some of your videos, and like,
cool.
You know, she uses different colored plates than you do. I'm like, yeah, I know, she's a lot stronger than Dad.
Yeah. Stuff costs a pretty penny.
Yeah, right. But so is there any other shout outs or anything? Like, I know you've talked about Chad and Max and things, like, you know, just before we kind of like wrap up.
Well, I think one thing I want to say to your kids that are undecided and just don't know if they want to, like, oh, should I throw, or I'm missing my senior year. There's more to life than your senior year. It may seem like the end of the world right now, and it probably is for you. And it's okay. You can let that feeling, you could feel that feeling and allow it to happen, and just be okay with it. But the hardest part is being like, always looking back at that moment and being like, I wish I could have thrown at state. How would I have done? You can't look at life that way, because everything, I feel, happens for a reason and a purpose. And it builds your character. You can either let it build your character, or you can let it burn you down as a person. And the person that is able to step away from a crisis like what we're going through right now, and learns from it and grows from it, is a strong person, because there's going to be a lot of hurdles those kids go through in their life. This might be something small for them, because they don't get to go through their senior year. There's some people out there not able to eat, losing their businesses. And like, there's always someone out there going through something bigger, right? Like, I hate when people say that, but it's true. And I think the thing is right now is those kids should just remember, like, they were able to throw their junior year. They were able to throw their sophomore year. They were able to do it, but you might not be able to get to do it your senior year. And it's okay. Like, and if you want to go to college to be a thrower, go to college to be a thrower. Throw and go to medical school. And if after your first year you hate it and you just want to do school, do it. I always say, like, you can never tell somebody what to do. You can never tell them how to live their life. I always say, if you want to live your life for you, I'd say that's the best way and that's the best direction you should go in, because that's the one. If you live your life for you, you'll never regret what you do. Because I feel like you'll be happy with what you're doing, because you're doing it for you. You're not doing it for mom and dad. You're not doing it for people on Instagram. You're not doing it for your coaches. You're doing it for you. So if that's what you want to do and you want to be a thrower in college, then I say just 100% go for it. Because I was always told, don't do this, don't do that, don't be an athlete, you're making no money. Well, I'm still making no money, but I love it. I mean, I love it to death. I'm making I'm making money. I'm making decent money these past 2 years, this last year and the year before. But let me tell you, you will live paycheck to paycheck, and you will fail, and you will at moments think, am I doing the right thing? And you will have to work harder than you would ever have to work if you just went to college and got a job. Because you have to almost dig deep and use your own idea to how to make money, how to survive, how to run your business, because you are your business when you're an athlete. Nobody else is. And sponsors, they come and go. And they don't throw out a lot of money, because unless you're a lot of what you do as an athlete is you're doing it for your sport, and you don't have to spend time taking these selfies and doing all this stuff. And that's why you're seeing more pictures from me lately, because it's now I have time. Before it was just throw up a training video, tell them what you're doing. We can't always be motivating. We can't always be inspiring. So for your kids, just do what you're going to do and you'll be happy for the rest of your life. Do you. So yeah, I think that's probably it.
I think that's great. You're an awesome person. Thank you so much for taking the time to share and talk about this. I mean, I learned a ton. When you look at social media and you kind of sometimes take for granted, you post a great lifting video and stuff, but I think sometimes people forget to realize how many misses were there, what went wrong that week. It's one snapshot in time. Or when I was 22, I'm 38, so the Facebook just started. There's no Instagram. You had to wait days and weeks before something was posted online as a performance. Or Powerlifting USA magazine, it waited 6 or 7 months before your powerlifting results showed up in the magazine. And then it's and by then it's the lists are all changed and what have you. But
sure.
No, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Alyssa.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on. It was awesome.
Thanks. Take care. Thanks.
Thanks.